Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Alloy's Lunch and Learn sessions. Today, we'll be looking at the Yealink MTR devices and using these devices with interactive panels from the Maxhub. All right, my name is Scott Young, and I'm the Manager of Products and Services at Alloy. And today, if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please do leave them to the end and I will get to them as quickly as possible. If you do have questions throughout and you don't want to wait, just write them down in the chat or the Q&A panel and we'll go through them towards the end. All right, so today's session will be a fairly quick one. We're going to look at some of the benefits of utilizing an interactive panel with both a Windows and Android-based MTR. We will look at some of the use cases for using the Maxhub interactive panels with the Windows-based MTRs and also the Android-based MTRs, and then we'll finish with a Q&A session. So it should, like I said, it should be a fairly quick one. It should only be 15 minutes or so. So if you do have any questions, leave them till the end, if that would be great. All right, first of all, let's have a look at some of the benefits of actually utilizing an interactive panel like a Maxhub device with MTR devices. So first of all, it's going to give us a bit more of an enhanced collaboration experience. Being able to utilize the touch functionality of an interactive panel allows us to kind of collaborate together with people remotely and also inside the meeting room to give us a more interactive experience when we're content sharing into a Teams meeting. Now, another example is being able to utilize and control the MTR from the Maxhub panel. So utilizing the touch functionality of an interactive panel, it allows us to actually control that meeting as well. Another, huge advantage is, like I said, adding that touch capability to your content share. So being able to share content into a meeting, but then utilize that touch to collaborate with your team and your customers inside that meeting. And then lastly, being able to use the built-in Teams Whiteboard app. So rather than using a mouse on your PC to take notes and things on the Whiteboard app, being able to use that touch experience is really beneficial. All right, first of all, let's have a look at how we can use Maxhub's interactive panels with the Yealink Windows-based MTR solutions. So there's a couple of different use cases on how we can utilize this. So one of these use cases is actually utilizing Maxhub's built-in Windows-based OPS module inside the interactive panel and then sharing content to your Teams meeting. So basically, the Maxhub panel itself would be standalone device. It wouldn't be connected to your MTR physically. However, what we would do is we would then use that device to insert content into our Teams meeting. So we can do that one of two ways. We could do that by using Yealink's wireless content sharing dongle, the WPP20. So what we would do is we would insert the WPP20 into a USB port on the Maxhub panel, and then we would wirelessly connect that to or from the Maxhub device, wirelessly connect that to the Windows-based MTR, and then share the content from the screen of the Maxhub panel into our Teams meeting. Now, if we did have the capability to be able to connect a cable, we could also do it that way as well by using the HDMI cable or the USB-C cable that is connecting from Yealink's MTouch panel to the Maxhub interactive display. So by doing that, it gives us a bit more kind of ease of use when using diagrams and things like that. So rather than having the difficulty to be able to draw on the screen and things like that with a mouse, being able to use that interactive panel to collaborate through the Teams meeting is just a good use case. And it really does help for the people inside the meeting room space, where we can actually have multiple people standing at the panel and interacting with that panel and sharing that content across the meeting to those remote participants as well. Okay, another way of doing this or integrating the Maxhub panel into our MTRs would be to actually utilize the Maxhub panel as the second screen on your Windows MTR deployment. So rather than in our first scenario where we had the Maxhub panel being an independent device in our meeting room space and then just using it to content share into a meeting, what we could do in this use case is actually connect it to the MTR via HDMI and utilize it as our second display in a Teams room infrastructure. And this way, what we would do is we could then bring our laptops into our meeting room spaces. We can then share content into our Teams meeting from our laptop, but then still have that kind of touch capability implemented from our laptop to our interactive panel, the Maxhub panel itself. Now, to do that, what we would do is we would still share content from our laptop into our Teams meeting. Now, we can do that via the WPP20, or we can do that via the HDMI or USB-C cable connected to the MTouch. But what we need to do now is we need to have a physical USB connection from our laptop to our Maxhub panel. So what that USB connection is going to allow us to do is to actually utilize the touch functionality on the Maxhub panel. But what we're doing is we're controlling the content from our laptop on that Maxhub panel. So when we look at it, so we're running a Teams meeting. We've got two panels in our meeting room space. We've got a non-interactive and we've got an interactive. So when we share content, the content will be displayed on that interactive panel. Now, if we have that USB cable connected from our laptop to the Maxhub, we can then control the content from the laptop using the touch capability of the Maxhub panel. So again, it gives us another way to kind of interact with our content and allow more collaboration throughout a Teams meeting. Okay, so one of the last ways that we can utilize a Maxhub device with our Windows-based MTR solutions is again by using Yealink's BYOD type connectivity options with our Windows-based MTRs. So every single kit that Yealink has when we're talking about MTR on Windows allows us to have a BYOD connectivity to another device. So what we could do running our Maxhub panel with our built-in Windows OPS module, we can then run whatever VC application we want on our Maxhub panel, but utilize the camera and the audio solution from our Windows-based MTR. So for example, we've got our Windows-based MTR set up in a larger meeting room space. It could be a single camera solution, it could be a dual camera solution, depending on how big that meeting room space is, it doesn't really matter. What we could then do is we could potentially wheel in a Maxhub trolley, the Maxhub panel attached, or it might be a Maxhub panel that's already installed in that meeting room space. Now, in this example, we might be running a VC application that the Windows-based MTR doesn't support. So let's say we want to use Google Meet. We haven't got a dedicated laptop or whatever we can bring into our meeting room space. So we want to use the Windows PC that is built into the Maxhub panel. We can then run our Google Meet application on our Maxhub panel. We have our USB connection from the Windows-based MTR to our Maxhub panel. And this allows us to utilize the high-end 12 times optical zoom camera of the Yealink Room system, plus its in-room audio as well, but actually run the Google Meet application from the Maxhub PC. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. We're utilizing an interactive panel for that touch capability, but we're utilizing the high-end camera and AV from the Yealink MTR solution. All right, now let's have a look at how we can actually integrate the Maxhub Interactive Panels with our Android-based MTR devices. Now, with this kind of solution, there's a lot more integration that we're going to get, because what we can do, because that, the A20 or the A30 Android-based collaboration bar from Yealink, it's all built in. It's an Android device. There's no additional PC or anything required, so it's going to install nice and easily on top of an interactive panel from Maxhub. We can then connect our HDMI cable from our A20 or A30 to the panel. That's going to give us our display onto the screen. But what we can do is we can then connect a USB cable from our touch panel to the A20 or A30. And what this is going to allow us to do is actually control the Android-based MTR from that interactive panel. So rather than using Yealink CTP18 little touch panel or using a remote control to control the A20 Android bar, we can actually utilize the touch capability of the Maxhub interactive panel. Now, when we do this, and we, potentially where, somebody else is sharing content into a meeting. So a remote participant, for example, has shared content into a meeting. They've shared the whiteboard functionality. We can then utilize that touch panel to also collaborate with that remote participant and also interact with that whiteboard as well. Okay, so another solution that we can do as well is, again, we can, very similar to the Windows-based solution, we can also add BYOD capabilities with the Android-based solutions. So again, rather than utilizing or running the Teams application on the Android bar or the Zoom application on these Android bars, what we can do is we can run a BYOD solution. So we can, again, utilize the Windows-based OPS module on the interactive panel. We can then run whatever VC application we want. Let's say, again, as an example, Google Meet. We run the Google Meet application from the Maxhub panel. We have our HDMI cable from our A30 to the panel. We have a USB connect for touch, and we can then actually utilize the full kind of BYOD functionality of the A30. So we can utilize the camera, the mic, and the speakers of the A30, but run that VC application on the touch panel itself. Now, another great thing with the Android-based solutions is not only do we have a wired BYOD solution, but we've also got a wireless BYOD solution as well with the new WPP30. So being able to connect the WPP30 to the Maxhub panel, we can then wirelessly connect to our A30, and then the A30 will be installed on the Maxhub panel as a video and audio device, and then we can select those devices as our hardware for our meeting. So we run Google Meet, we select the A30 as our camera, as our mic, as our speaker, and then utilize that hardware inside the Maxhub screen, running whatever VC application that we want to run. Okay, so there's a few different use cases of using the using a interactive panel with Yealink's Windows and Android-based MTR solutions. As I said, guys, was going to be a quick session. We've only gone 15 minutes, but I've just about finished my content. Do you guys have any questions in regards to this connectivity? If you do, feel free to raise your hand or to ask a question in the chat panel or the Q&A panel. We've got one question. Okay, from Christopher, can you license a Maxhub as a Teams room and get the full functionality from it? So unfortunately, you can't. So Microsoft actually locked down what hardware can run the Teams room application. So unlike Zoom, where you can actually install the Zoom room application on basically any Windows-based PC you want, Microsoft actually lock it down. So there's certain requirements of the hardware that you need to actually adhere by to run the Microsoft Teams Room client. So I suppose, Chris, that's kind of why we would integrate it the way that we've kind of gone through today, just because that Microsoft, because the Maxhub can't run as an MTR solution. So, some of the use cases might be, also people might ask, why not just use the desktop application on the Maxhub and forget about the MTR kind of option. But the problem with that is that you continuously need to sign in and sign out of that desktop application. Now, if somebody walks into a room and you're running, you've got an interactive panel, it's running Windows, and you're using the desktop-based Teams application, if they walk into the room, they sign in with their account. If they forget to sign out, then you've left all of your chat history, your call history, any notes you might have inside Teams, left there on the display for other people to get access to. So it's one of the benefits of running an MTR application in a shared space, is that once you kind of run that meeting and you end that meeting, there's no history there. That's all gone. Whereas the desktop application running on a Windows PC, for example, you're running the risk of leaving all of that information open to be exploited. So definitely, when you're using shared spaces, run with an MTR solution. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for our next Alloy Lunch and Learn session. Thanks, guys.